Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the English News Edition brought to you live from RTD channel. The headlines for tonight are: at the Presidential Palace, the head of state Ismail Omar Guelleh continued his meeting with the different ministerial departments. An inauguration of the Gedi Amarre Samatar Health Center at PK20. And on the international scene, Netanyahu cancels UN deal on African migrants in shocks reversal. Let's get into the details now. The head of state, Ismail Omar Guelleh, led an important meeting on ICTs and their development assistance with the highest public officials. The head of state of the Republic, Ismail Omar Guelleh, this afternoon dedicated a new version of its meetings with the main public officials of our country to the new technologies of information and communication, as well as the valuable competition that they bring to access to development. ICTs bring together all these modern communication processes that encompass computing, digital, internet, as well communications. The use of ICTs is so widespread and prevalent today that no country, no society can evolve in the modern world without give itself the means to the mastering. Let's know the participation of the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamal Mohammed and 4 ministers, namely the Minister of Communication and Telecommunications, Ministers of Education as well Health, and finally the Minister of Trade and Commerce. The head of state, Ismail Omar Guelleh, as usual, has opened the discussion today with his speech exposing the issue around information, communication as well technology. He emphasized the importance of the subject for the 21st century Djiboutian society.
Dans le cadre de notre marche vers le développement de notre pays,
today we continue the debates on development with the means we have. We are making development the absolute priority to get out our country of the unemployment, misery, and all the means we can use to achieve these goals must be together. This is why we are evaluating ourselves in order to create synergy between the different ministerial departments to develop coordination. We must put all the assets we have at our disposal for this mission. Ministers and senior officials are all engaged in this mission. Today we are going to talk the subject that concerns the technology of information and communication. This is a highly important subject for the future of our country. It is a subject of interest to all of our society and deserves to be mastered. And it is important to establish a real coordination between the various actors.
President Ismail Omar Guelleh addressed today, Tuesday, a message of congratulations to his re-elected counterpart yesterday of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. In his message, the head of state welcomed a brilliant victory, a consequence of the important adhesion that formed the people, brother as well friend, Egyptian around the policy of the President al-Sisi. I'm convinced that the continuation of your action at the head of the Arab Republic of Egypt will be an additional guarantee of cohesion for your country, wrote President Guelleh. Your re-election will also allow your country to continue its fierce and legitimate fight against terrorism on all sides, he added. Be sure, Mr. President, that you will always find with the people and the government of the Republic of Djibouti the necessary assistance to strengthen our already privileged relation of friendship as well cooperation between our two nations, he said, the head of state of Djibouti, before reiterating his wishes of success to his Egyptian counterpart. Still with the national news, under the chairmanship of Kaltoum Farah Said, the Committee on Legislation and General Administration was held this Tuesday. The agenda of this meeting focused on the examination and procedure of urgently 3 bills was were on the agenda. At this meeting, the government was represented by the Minister of Justice and Penitentiary Affairs in charge of Human Resources, Mumin Ahmed Sheikh, the reform of the Civil Code and Code of Civil Procedures, which is essential for strengthening the legitimate framework of the Republic of Djibouti, contributes on the one hand to improving the business as well investment climate in Djibouti, and on the other hand it is the question of adapting the text to the needs of the citizens while reinforcing the legal security in the matter. In addition, it's clear that the reform lays the foundation for the modernization of the legal instruments essential for the best application of the laws to litigants. Therefore, as presented by the experts of the Ministry of Justice, the flagship measures undertaken by the government to remedy the slowness of judicial proceedings are various. Among others, I may have mentioned the prosecution of judges on the disciplinary level for breach or the dismissal of the judge in a case of non-compliance with the deadlines for processing cases in the resolution of disputes as provided by the new Code of Civil Procedures. The Health Minister, Dr. Jamal Moukiye, on Monday afternoon inaugurated the Community Health Center Gedi Amarres Samatar at Piquet-Twini in tribute to one of the most illustrious Okal general of the Artas region, better known by his nickname Gedi Gab. The people of Piquet-Twini and the surrounding area came in large numbers to welcome the health minister as well his delegation in a festive as well joyful atmosphere by performing traditional songs and dances. The inaugural ceremony was attended by the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, Mrs. Muna Osman Aden, the Prefect of Arta region, Abdullahi Dararoukiye, the President of the Regional Council, Elmi Bou, as well the Secretary General of Dr. Salah Banouita, and many health department executives who attended local officials at this colorful ceremony. This community health center will serve the population of Piquet-Twini, who has welcomed the delocalized inhabitants of Dorale who settled in this village. This new community health center offers specialized services such as maternity, which aims to strengthen the quality of care provision and improve access to and proximity to specialized health care that is close to the population. The Minister of Health, Dr. Jamal Mouki, and his guests therefore cut the symbolic ribbon before signing in unison the national anthem of our country. On behalf of the residents of Dorale and Piquet-Twini, the leaders of these respective neighborhoods took the floor to welcome Minister of Health Jamal Mouki and her and its guests. The notables of these localities also wished to transmit the thanks and gratitude of the population to the place of the government, and more particularly to the head of state Ismail Omar Ghili. The Prefect of the region, Abdullahi Darar Oukiye, and Arta Regional Council Chairman Elmi Bou have expressed their encouragement to the government efforts to develop and modernize healthcare infrastructure. The two representatives of the Arta region congratulate the advent of this community health center, Gedigab, which honors all the inhabitants of this region, both by the history and by the experience of this great General Okal, who was respected and appreciated by all. The State Secretary for Social Affairs, Mrs. Muna Osman Aden, for her part, said that the opening of this health center in Piquet-Twini is part of a set of the government measures to improve the social welfare of the population. Indeed, the Secretary of State for Social Affairs has highlighted a number of socio-economic support structures that will be made available to the population in order to promote their resilience and to sustain improvement in living standards. The Health Minister, Dr. Jamal Moukiye, reminded the objective and the implementation of the project of this community health center of Piquet-Twini that to respond to the complaints expressed by the population by urging them to take care and ensure the safety of their common good and its perpetuations. The Minister of Health, in his speech, said that the birth of this motherhood in this health center comes following the formal and direct instruction of the First Lady, Khadra Mahmoud Haid, And finally, the Ministry of Health has therefore traced the story of the late Gedi Amarre Samatar, known as Gedi Gap, who gave his name to this new health structure at PK20. The health minister and his delegation then made a guided tour of this brand new jail under the guidance of the chief medical officer and the director of health regions, who presented the various services of this community health center. The Minister of Health, Dr. Jamal Mokiye, has reviewed all the services of this new center, which has a high performance laboratory and advanced technological equipment, several hospital beds with operational emergency 24 hours, a community pharmacy, a delivery room, as well as support for the health of the mother and the child. The community health center also has qualified staffs who are motivated to serve in the best conditions the population of this village as well surrounding localities. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sport, Hassan Mohammed Kamil, visited this morning the scene of the tragedy, accompanied by the advisor of the President of the Republic in charge of the youth issue, Ali Mohammed Dato, his communication advisor, Medina Saleh Ali, tourism director, Usman Abdi Mohammed, as well as the head of the aquatic federations. As the first person in charge of the youth, the Secretary of State for Youth and Sport felt compelled to react to this tragedy, and therefore invited the Direction of Tourism, the City Council of Djibouti, the firemen, the guards, dimension, as well as the federation in charge of the aquatic sport, namely the Swimming Federation, the Scuba Diving Federation, and the Federation of Motorcycle Sport, to see with them the ways and means to take for batters to enjoy aquatic pleasures and avoid that such a tragedy can repeat. To this end, it has been discussed and the delimitation of swimming areas that the swimmer must respect by marking the floats and signs, the establishment of a watchdog monitoring that will allow rapid intervention in case of accident. There was also talk of training many volunteers in first aid as well as rescue techniques. And still with the national news, the prosecutors of the sub-region held a meeting of exchange as well information in the conference room of the Ministry of Justice, and it is under the auspices of the Ministry of Justice, Mumin. This conference is entitled Samatalis. It will bring together prosecutors and judges of prosecutors and from the countries in sub-region, namely Djibouti, the host country, Somaliland, Tanzania, Kenya, Seychelles, as well Ethiopia. These countries will endeavor to find together the appropriate means to fight against all kinds of organized crimes, particularly terrorism. This first meeting enables the participant and magistrate of the sub-region to exchange information to better coordinate their fight against organized crime. The courthouse hosted yesterday a swearing ceremony of a young notary. The ceremony took place before the Court of Appeal and in the presence of Attorney General Jama' Suleiman Ali, High Court Justice, and a tenor of the bar. Pursuant to the Article 23 of the Notarial Act, Mr. Abdul Qadir Abdurrahman was sworn to perform her duties as a notary with accuracy and probity. The family members of the girl had also attended the ceremony. Recall that Mrs. Shaf Abdul Qadir Abdurrahman is the 8th notary to practice in the Republic of Djibouti. Now, in the obituary file to report the deaths of two persons, we have learned with great sadness the deaths of the late Ahmed Gado Mohammed yesterday afternoon at the Sudanese military hospital. Retired from the National Army, the deceased leaves behind him a widow and 5 children. At the age of 74, he was the paternal uncle of our colleague, editor-in-chief of the section Afar, Ali Ahmed Gado. Information Directorate addressed its most heartfelt sympathy to our colleague and his family. May the Almighty have pity on his soul. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Another death that of the artist is Harun occurred yesterday at his home in Hodan. The deceased was appreciated for his generosity and his sympathy. Artist accomplished. He was at the same time a musician, an interpreter, and an actor. He began his career with the theater group Anglais. Harun has marked the music scene a lot, taking over from guitar a number of old songs who have remained in the hearts of Djiboutians. The deceased will have been 50 years old tomorrow. He was born on April 4, 1965 in Djibouti. Harun leaves us and left behind him a widow, 7 children, as well 3 small children. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And now let's get into the international news. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu canceled an agreement with the UN Refugee Agency on Tuesday aimed at avoiding forced deportation of thousands of African migrants only hours after having announced a deal himself. The stunning turnout after Netanyahu announced the accord in a televised address on Monday afternoon came as he faced mounting pressure from his right-wing base. The UN Refugee Agency urged Netanyahu to reconsider. So that's it for the news. Thanks for your attention.